We've got some fresh new young talent doing some things that I know you haven't heard before.
1, 2, 3, listen.
Welcome to Finances, your home for all things financial, investment, money and lifestyle. Hosted and curated by the very talented team of certified financial planners at Burke Britton Financial Partners. This is the Finances podcast, and today's guest is someone that I probably should have had on a long time ago.
Should have been first.
Probably should have been first, other than Peter. You've ruined it for everyone now. This is someone who was going to be on the podcast, and it would be their first time on a podcast, but someone else beat us to that. Aimee Louise Lucas.
Nope.
What, did I get that wrong? Did I?
That's my mum's name.
Aimee Amanda Lucas.
No, I don't think you'll get it. I don't think I've told you.
What's your middle name?
BRIGITTE.
Why didn't I know that? I was sure it was Louise. Maybe that was because I always wanted Peter as my middle name. One of my parents' name as my middle name.
Yeah.
So BRIGITTE. Where did BRIGITTE come from?
I think Dad just liked it, so he got
from
drums.
Anywhere or not?
No, nowhere. I'm the only kid in our family with a name that doesn't have the grandparents' name or great-grandparents' name.
Okay, so you just plucked the name out of thin air.
Yeah.
That's a little bit like Alfie. Alfie's got Marty as one of his middle names. I have no idea where it came from. We just made it up. So
Whatever works.
So Aimee, thanks for coming on the podcast. It's weird talking to you when you, other than my wife, you're the person that I speak to and talk to and text and email the most out of anyone in my life. So we probably haven't sat down and had a conversation for half an hour about your life and where you came from. So you've heard the podcast. You know how this works. Let's go back. Let's go all the way back to Portland days, your mum and dad, and where you were born.
Portland.
Yeah.
It's an easy one. So 1988, little hospital in Portland, and here I came. So 34 years ago now.
Did your folks always live in Portland or not?
Mum was originally from Melbourne and Dad Hamilton.
Whereabouts in Melbourne was your mum?
Not sure, to be honest.
Come on, you don't know the history of your family?
Oh, no, I think she was around Ivanhoe, Heidelberg kind of area. Yeah.
So how did your folks meet and when did they meet?
I'm not sure either.
Oh, we're going to have to get
This is going to be good. Just cut to last week.
All right, so
we'll have to get Mum and Dad on.
We're going to have to get your mum and dad on together on the podcast. Would that work?
Mum or Dad.
Anyway, so you're in Portland. You were born in 88.
Yeah.
You had some siblings. So talk me through when your siblings were born and what childhood was like for you growing up in Portland.
Yeah, so older sister was 4 years before me.
What's
Sarah.
her name? Oh, Sarah. Okay.
Yeah, one of Ben's clients.
Yeah.
And then after me was my brother, Sam, who's still back in Portland. And Jessie was she about 6 years after me. So the four of us. And
so did you all went to school in Portland from, did you go to kinder, prep?
All the way.
Was it the one school or was it different schools? Which school did you go to?
There's a couple primary schools in Portland, but we all went to the same one, St. John's.
Yeah.
St. John's Primary.
Was it a Catholic primary?
It was Lutheran.
Okay.
Yes. And then there's only two high schools. So all four of us went to the same high school.
Did you get to pick which high school you went to? Or was one the public, one was the private?
One public, one private.
Which one did you go to?
The private.
Oh, the private.
Yeah. So, little high school up on the cliff top.
What's the name of the...
Bayview.
Okay.
Yeah, Bayview Secondary College. So,
thinking back about your childhood, how was childhood in Portland? What did you do?
Yeah, really good.
Did you surf? Did you play sport?
Sports, lots of sports, netball, gymnastics. Sisters played basketball and
what's the population
football.
Of Portland, or what would it have been back then?
Probably around 10,000.
Yep.
I think it sort of hovers up and around that constantly. But yeah, it was good growing up there. Had friends on farms and friends in town. It was a pretty safe town, so you'd ride your bike around when you were early teens. And
did you live in town or did you live out of town?
In town.
Do you call Portland town?
Yes.
Yeah. I know in Horsham we call it going up the street rather than going into town, whereas in Geelong we call it going into town. Portland's going into town.
Well, Portland was probably down the street. I'm going to go down the street.
Down the street.
Which is strange, but...
Well, it's on the southern coast of Australia. It's kind of down, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's on the downslope of down under, maybe.
Maybe.
So pretty normal upbringing, sports, fairly big family with lots of siblings, lots of fun.
Yeah.
Anything during your high school years, what were you thinking you were going to do at high school? Did you have anything that you gravitated towards with maths or science or sport? Did you think about what you wanted to do when you grew up?
I was always thinking about it, but never really landed on something. So I was kind of consistent across all subjects, but nothing really stood out that I loved and wanted to do for the rest of my life that I could see myself in. So
what were you thinking? You said you were thinking about it. What were the types of things you thought about at school?
I really liked health and science. I liked English, sort of gravitated towards those a bit more than anything. I think in year 12 I did Japanese, history, maths, English, and kind of just spread myself across to see what I liked the most still. And then after high school I landed in health science at uni and just threw myself into that for 3 weeks and then quit.
So was that with a view to do nursing?
Not really. It was just kind of a broad health science. I like taking care of people a fair bit, so I kind of thought maybe nursing or, something along those lines. But
because that's what I did. I did a health science degree when I finished school. I know when I had no idea what I wanted to do, and I felt a bit of pressure to try and work out what I wanted to do. Did you feel that pressure in sort of year 11, year 12, thinking, shit, I've got to sort out what the rest of my life's going to look like?
Yeah, a lot, especially because Sarah, 4 years, was at uni at that point.
She's a high achiever.
Yeah, she was doing, I think she did police studies. So she was at uni. She'd been there for 3 or 4 years already. I think she was doing maybe, what's it called when you do the extra year?
An extra year?
No, like the...
Postgrad?
No, more than that.
Masters?
More than that, maybe masters. The year that you do a thesis on one subject.
PhD?
Maybe. No, I don't think she went
doctor?
that far. But I felt the pressure, and especially because a lot of people around me were doing just that. They were saying, well, I'm going to be a doctor, I'm going to be a pharmacist, I'm going to be a nurse, and I still hadn't worked it out.
What did your mum and dad want you to do? Or did they?
They were pretty good. They were pretty easygoing and not trying to force me down a pathway. They kind of encouraged me to pick something but didn't tell me I had to.
Yep.
I knew I wanted to be in Geelong, so I knew I would probably go to uni.
What was the pull to Geelong?
Sarah being here, so my older sister was here, the size, having come up for holidays and stuff, I knew I liked it. Not many job opportunities in Portland, so thought I'd make the big city move.
So you lasted 3 weeks at uni?
3 weeks. I couldn't find my classroom. And I vividly remember not finding the classroom for this class. Not panicking, just being like, no, that's it.
Did you have
I'm done.
a 3-week HECS debt?
No. So I pulled out just before you had to commit to the debt.
Clever.
Yeah. So, and I kind of had that timeline in my head the whole time, I think. So I knew you've got to make a decision by this date, and just not finding that classroom.
Do you think you always knew you weren't going to do it?
I don't know, to be honest. I think I'll give it a go.
Did you feel disappointed at that point, or did you feel relieved?
Relieved.
Did you know what you'd go to after those 3? Did you have any job prospects lined up, or? No,
so I actually moved back to Portland for about a year or 18 months.
With your mum, your dad, or your parents separated from this at this point, or not?
Yeah, separated. So I moved back in with mum, and went back to my old job, which was full-time at a cafe restaurant, and just kind of took a gap year in my hometown, which isn't very exciting. But it took some time to work out what I wanted to do, and then eventually moved back up here.
What did you do at the cafe? Were you were you in the kitchen, or were you out delivering?
So they called it a senior. So I was a senior at 19, I think I was, but a bit of everything. So kind of managing the staff, cooking, cleaning.
Like managing the operations, kind of.
Yeah, very similar.
Wow.
Just across everything. You just had to be across everything. You know, closures, opens in the morning, that sort of stuff.
Were you as fastidious with detail and tasks then as you are now, or is that something that...
No, I was.
So we'll get to how you joined us, but in terms of that as a quality, those people, the clients that are listening to this will understand what I'm talking about, but you have, how would you describe your personality? Is it positively, Aimee?
Yeah.
You have a very high level attention to detail, and you don't like to let things go incomplete or not completed. Where did that quality come from? Is it something that you got from your parents? Is it your mum or your dad or your siblings? Where did that come from?
I think it might be a combination of mum and dad. So dad's always been a really hard worker his whole life, and mum's really been the same. So they both worked full-time, even with the 4 kids. Both of them worked full-time when we were a bit older, and just do things, just get up and do it. I think particularly dad, coming from farming in Hamilton, if you don't do it, you don't have a fire at the end of the night. You don't have tea on the table. You don't get to do what you want to do. If you sit around and don't do things, then, well, you're going to be stuck like that. So I think just knowing get up and do it yourself probably helped that there was 4 kids, and so you kind of fall into the mix sometimes. And you know, when there's 4 kids to take care of, you get a bit self-sufficient in doing things, because you know there's so many things going on around you that you have to do it yourself a lot of the time if you want it. Yeah.
Let's fast forward a little bit to post your gap year in Portland, exciting gap year in Portland. You moved back then to Geelong and you got a gig down here somewhere. What were you doing?
I was out at Lara Secondary College. So, yeah, I actually vividly remember this as well. I joined up with G-Force Recruitment in town. They sent me for an interview out at Lara, and they were in the portables. I remember it was about a 43-degree day and school hadn't gone back, and I interviewed with the business manager out there, and they said, come on board. And
what were you doing?
Just the office work, so reception.
So you were the secretary? Yep.
Yeah, so when kids,
late passes?
Yeah, late passes, accounts when parents came in and wanted to know how much was owing, all of that sort of stuff. So that was my first foot in the door of real administration work.
Did you enjoy that or not?
I did like it. It was busy. No, it was good. I didn't really like it.
Well, what was it about that you didn't enjoy?
I was there 3 years in the end, and I think just my time had come by the end of it. So in the last year I was there, I did managing the CRTs, so daily organiser. For anyone who works in a school, they'll know what that role is.
Is the CRT the relief teachers?
Yeah, so organising those. So I get up at about 6, I'd check the work phone, see who'd text or called to say they were away 6, and then I'd manage someone to cover their...
Oh, so you'd be the annoying person that would ring someone, wake them up and say, can you come into work today?
Yes. Yeah. So that was different. So I did 2 years on reception in the office, doing the school newsletter, helping out the teachers if they had printing overflow and stuff like that. And then the last year was daily organiser. And I think maybe I'm a morning person, so I like the early mornings, but I just felt like my time had come with the school. You know, I'd been in the school environment 3 years. It'd been great to get my hands into some admin and get used to working on computers all day and things like that. But I was ready for another challenge.
And so that next challenge was at us?
Yes.
Okay, so I can't even remember who interviewed you or how you ultimately... Was I part of that interview process or not?
I think you were there on the second one.
Okay.
So Brooklyn, David, yourself. I remember I turned up for the interview 20 minutes early and kind of just sat in reception nervously the whole time.
Can you remember what we had put in the job ad?
It was reception.
Okay.
Yeah. So my friend was working here at the time as well, so she got me a foot in the door with the interview, and obviously I aced it.
So when did you join us?
12 years ago in December.
Congratulations, Aimee, on your 12-year anniversary, soon to be. Was it just gone or coming up?
Coming up.
Coming up. I should know that, shouldn't I?
Mm.
Probably. So you started in reception. Now, you've said a few times to us and comically to clients as well that when you joined, you actually had no idea what we did, but I'm not sure that was actually a lie. That's kind of true, isn't it?
It's so true.
Yeah. So when you first began, we must have given you some insight into what we did as a business. How did you not know what we were doing?
I think because we were over the hall and reception was out the front with the closed door in between the front and back. So I didn't really get a lot of insight into what was happening out the back. So I was not isolated, but I was out the front and I'd take the calls and someone would ask to speak to someone out the back and I'd put them through. I'd greet the clients, they'd go into the meeting with the door shut. So I didn't have a whole lot of insight for probably the first 6 months, I think, before I really started to get into things being your PA.
So let's go through the timeline of your role with us. You started with the reception. How long after you were at reception did you become my PA?
I think it was about 6 months.
So 6 months in. Oh, that was quick, wasn't it? Jeez, you must have been impressed. I can't even remember that.
With not knowing what was happening. Really impressive.
You were my PA for a while. Then what happened after that? Where was the progression after that?
So I think I did your PA stuff. It would have been 3 or 4 years maybe. So that was prepping all your files, dealing with your clients, organising your diary, grabbing your lunches and washing.
Picking up the kids from school.
Picking up the kids, washing out freezers, all the high-level important stuff. And then after 3 or 4 years, there was an opening for practice manager, and you approached me, or the business approached me and said, how would you feel about the challenge? And I remember I was pretty nervous, but kind of like at Lara, I knew that I was ready for a change or a challenge. And took it, said, I'll give it a go. I think the support was really good at that time, that if it doesn't work, there's always the PA role or something else to step back into, but the offer's there for a challenge, and I took it.
Yeah. The progression of you in your role's been kind of an interesting one, and this is not, well, it probably is me pumping your tyres up a little bit, and this is not the first time I've told you this, that like the evolution from you coming as someone who knew nothing about financial planning, came in as a receptionist, to being a support role for one of the directors, to now actually literally running the show, has been amazing. And I know, and you'll probably just mention it briefly then, that you're probably the first to admit that there's some of your greatest qualities, your greatest strengths, were some of the things that potentially will be tension for you in a practice management role where you've got to kind of let go a little bit. You've got to let go. So talk to me a bit about that evolution from you from naive receptionist to now a practice manager running one of Australia's biggest and most successful financial planning operations.
So the biggest learnings I've had and what I've seen in myself, I think confidence is a big one. There's something about being in your 30s that just feels better than being in your 20s, and I think that's practice and experience, and I think not being scared to get it wrong. So in the past, I would not have a lot of confidence in myself because I hadn't done something or made that decision before, but now I understand that if something doesn't go right, you can change things. No one does it perfectly, and a lot of people are just kind of winging it and trying things themselves. And I think also a lot of the just life events I've had in the last 10 years have really helped me just not get so wrapped up and worked up about stuff that happens at work. Yeah. You just got to roll with the punches sometimes and do the best you can.
Were you scared that your boss would yell at you if you made a mistake?
Peter would never yell at me. Peter's the boss.
Yes.
Not worried about that. No, not really.
So let's talk a little bit about what your role looks like day to day. Like Aimee Lucas now as practice manager of Burke Britton Financial Partners, what does a day in your life actually look like? So to give sort of open the curtain a little bit for clients and people who are out there listening to this, what does a practice manager, what does your role entail?
So I've recently been saying it's taking care of everyone and everything, which is very broad, but day to day it's working with the staff, whether it's just simply on their diary and what they need that day, or whether it's actually taking care of their long-term pathway and where they want to be in 5 years, 12 months, 6 months, next week. So all the stuff around staffing, which is probably the part I enjoy the most but find the most challenging.
Why do you find it so challenging? What is it?
Well, challenging, but in a good way, I guess. So everyone has different personalities and different views on things. They have different pathways they want to follow, and just making sure the business is lining up with how we can help them. And, if it's around different things that the business hasn't experienced before, all right, well, what do we need to look at to help them do that? Just making sure the planners are supported by the staff. So having your own idea of what you have to do for the day, but being in a small team, making sure it also supports everyone around you. So it's easy to come in and tick off your list of things to do for the day, but where does that fit in with the planner I'm taking care of or the business now and next month? So it's busy doing that sort of stuff, the staffing side.
I was thinking about this morning when I was sitting in the sauna thinking, what questions am I going to ask Aimee? And I kind of thought back to Peter and his philosophy on business that I think was probably before his time, which was, we would call it now, probably decentralized command. Back then he would call it, not being reliant on one person in particular. And I think if I had to kind of wrap up the philosophy of the business and also your role, but also the tension with practice management, it would be getting to the point where as a business, the business isn't reliant on any one particular person. And that's kind of a hard thing, like particularly when you're a doer, and it's a hard thing for a lot of people to let go and go, actually, we're trying to collaborate and build an amazing team that can work autonomously and doesn't require just one singular person like a Peter Burke or a Jay Burke to be the head honcho, that everyone can share the load. So it's been an evolution definitely from the time you began to where we are today. From a financial planning point of view, so that's what you do from a day-to-day point of view. If you had to say to someone out there that's listening, what do we actually do now as a financial planning business? What is it we do? How do we help people?
Well, there's always that really easy list we go to where we start saying superannuation, retirement, investing. But I think over the last few years, we've really worked out it's more than that and how to try and articulate it to clients or show them. So when my friends or family say, what do we do? I often say we take care of every aspect of their life, because everything intertwines with finances or lifestyle, which is what we support with. So if life events is a big one. So if you have a life event, you'll often find that you're calling your financial planner. If it's divorce, marriage, starting a family, inheritance, all of those sort of life events that prompt someone to have to sit and think, oh, what am I actually going to do here with this situation? And that's often where we get called in to support, whether it's actually strategy-wise and helping out with their finances or the change that's coming for them, or just emotional and personal support. Let's talk through this change that you're having. Who should you be talking to outside of this business that you might be able to get support from? So the relationship between the planners and the clients here is one of the things I love the most, because when those life events happen, they do pick up the phone and call us, even if they know that we might not be able to give them the exact support they need. So for a divorce, they know we probably can't do the financial legal side of things, but they know that we can talk to them about it, and that Peter J, Ben Delta will be able to talk them through everything.
It's interesting you hear that, because you talk through the lens of when you began and had no idea. Now listening to you talk today about the fact that we are essentially problem solvers and counsellors for people for matters of a financial and lifestyle. And, without talking about individual clients, like every week we would have life events with our clients, wouldn't we? We'd have life events where some of them are positive, some of them are tragic, that impact them and also us. And our job is to be there. Our job is to find solutions for individuals and for families to take some of that stress away, but also to allow them to live the lives that they want to live. It's we're very lucky. I think we're very lucky in the industry that we have, and I think are very fortunate. I was thinking again this morning about life events too, and also that I said before about having a less reliance on one particular person. And the thing that always comes to mind for me is 3.5 years ago when Peter lost his son and I lost my brother, and we were absent for the business from a couple of months, and you took the reins without us here. It was an unexpected absence for both of us, and managed this whole show without the principals here. And I know I probably have thanked you in the past, but I don't know that I'll ever be able to express enough the gratitude and thanks that Peter and I have for the support you've given us through that period of time. So not only the work that you do with our clients, but the support that you offer us, you really have become, you've been a very close confidant to both of us, and we're eternally grateful.
Same thing back as well.
Right, enough emotional stuff. Let's get on to some more clinical conversations. What does the future hold for Burke Britton Financial Partners? If you had to sort of look forward over the course of the next 12, 24 months and beyond, what's on the horizon for us?
Well, I'm really excited about our growth phase. So it's interesting when you say growth phase. I think it can raise a lot of ideas about what growth is to a business. But for us, I first and foremost see it as growth from the staff members, which naturally in turn means growth for the business. So we've got some really exciting staff members in the business that have ideas of where they want to be in the future. So we've got Shay, who's moving into Plannerland, and naturally that opens up a whole book of clients that he's going to be able to help support and talk to and meet with. We have some new staff coming on board in the next few weeks, which is really exciting. So we've got the team growing out the back, and the business in general is just growing.
I like what you, and again, it's a hard one to articulate to the external world about investing in people. Like when you think about a business, it's spoken about, but I don't think anyone really knows how to live the experience of giving ownership and responsibility and training and upskilling a team. It takes energy and effort, and I think we've talked about, as we've looked to employ people and bring better people on, bring people on, that we're basically looking for good human beings that will have the same care and work ethic that you've demonstrated over the course of the last 12 years, but also bring different skills as well. You mentioned a couple of times there about we want to give people an opportunity to go in the direction and the path that they want to. And I think that, to me, is the most exciting thing as we bring on new people, good quality people, is that they will help us find directions that this business will go in supporting our existing clients, but also finding new opportunities to support other clients in the Geelong, Shepparton, Melbourne region and beyond. I'm super excited. I know there's been lots and lots of changes in the industry. Without going into like a heap of detail around that, how excited are you about the changes industry-wide of recent time?
Yeah, really excited. I think things are getting easier in the industry, which makes it better for the clients.
When you say easier, so for someone out there listening, thinking easier, what does that actually mean?
Making advice easier for clients to understand, because when you hand someone a 110-page document, chances are they're not going to read it and they're not going to understand it. They'll understand the conversation you're having with them, but to hand them a stack of paperwork this big is really difficult for clients to even have time to sit down and read through. So the changes that they're making in the industry are going to allow clients to get a much smaller, easier to read document they can understand, maybe with some tables and some bar charts, and it shows them where they might be in 5 or 10 or 15 years, rather than having, tables and tables and tables in pages and pages of a document. So making advice more accessible and easier to understand for people who have never had financial planning advice before.
Yeah, I think that accessibility bit's the bit that with the government changes was missed a few years ago. They tried to make financial planning advice more accessible, and they did the exact opposite. Making it more accessible, I think the fact that a lot of financial planners have left the industry means that the financial planners that have left and have strong practices like ours are well versed to have quality people. They've got experienced planners and ones that can genuinely treat this industry as a profession and use their professional judgment. That's the word we've been using a lot of recent time, is that we've got I know, probably 100 years of experience in this practice with planners. It's time for the industry to actually allow them to use their professional judgment and not be bogged down in administrative paperwork that doesn't actually add value to clients. So yeah, I'm like you, very, very excited. Messages to clients. So is there anything either to our existing clients or potential clients, any call to action for anyone listening to this podcast, whether it's an existing client or a new client? What would you say to someone out there either thinking about looking for some advice or an existing client that's already supported by us?
I was actually thinking about this the other day, because a lot of my friends and family that I mention what we do to, even in passing, say to me, well, I don't have any money, I'm not ready for planning, or, I'm going to get some planning when I retire. And so I think that the call to action would be, it's never too early to start thinking about your lifespan of financial planning. So if you're thinking about retirement in 50 years, it's probably a good idea to start now, because it's going to be too late in 50 years when you want to retire. So we were talking a lot about clients that maybe end up relying heavily on Centrelink payments because they haven't pre-planned for when they do retire. So I think, a lot of my friends do say, I don't have any money, I can't plan, or I'm only working part-time because I'm home with the kids most of the time. I wouldn't have a need to see a planner. And I just think there's no harm in having a conversation to see where you are at. And people invest in their health, medical, fitness. You know, they're paying $60 a week for a gym membership. A one-off chat with a planner to see where you're sitting is never going to do any harm. So, that's probably my call to action for new clients.
I think the thing we've mentioned a few times as well internally, that the thing we've probably done poorly over the journey is not give people enough insight into what financial planning actually is. And to your point, that people can sit down and have a conversation. It might be a 15-minute conversation. It might be sitting down with an advisor for a couple of hours. But do that health check. Do that health check and see whether or not there's some things that you might need some support with, or there might actually be some things that you can comfortably get in order yourself. It might be some habit forming that you can do around your cash flow management, your budgeting, that you can comfortably do yourself and get yourself in a position where you are ready for advice. And when you are, you know where we are and how to contact us. Is there anything else you'd like to say before we wrap up, Aimee?
No, I think that's it. I think we covered most of the basics.
All right, well, thanks for jumping on. I'm sure this is not the last time you'll be on.
Hopefully.
Thanks, Aimee. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you're keen to understand more about how financial advice could benefit you, follow us on Instagram, Facebook and Twitter at Burke Britton FP, or Google Burke Britton Financial Partners. Check out our client reviews, testimonials, and make a time to meet one of our certified financial planners by clicking Book Now on our website. Thanks for listening.
Any information contained in this podcast is of a general nature only. No account was taken as to the objectives, financial situation, or needs of any particular person. Therefore, before making any decision, listeners should consider the appropriateness of any information with regard to their particular objective, financial situation, needs, and seek independent advice from a licensed professional specific to their circumstances.
All right, hit it.
That translates to, don't be a moron and act on what some random person says on a podcast. Take personal responsibility, do your homework, ask questions, and speak to an actual human that knows what they're talking about before you do anything. PB Financial Solutions Proprietary Limited, trading as Burke Britton Financial Partners, are authorised representatives of Aimee Financial Planning Limited, AFS, licence number 232706.